We have a cross versus battle between Ward Sequin and William Vangence. Ward Sequin and William Vangence have, wood type abilities, tree magic. Both of them have tree magic, world tree magic. They can control the environment with wood. Ward Sequin was one of the 10 Wizard Saints, currently still is. But he, lived to be like 130 or something like that, maybe even older. This guy's old as fuck, man. He is one of the founding members of Fairy Tale, one of the 10 Wizard Saints. He fought against God Serena alongside his other, three, Wizard Saints that were still active, right? And he lost. But he was the one who, basically made them be like, get back up. We still can, fight. If we can still move, we can still fight. He was, inspiring them and shit to, like, stand for, Ishtar, right? But we have Vangence, who's a Magic Knight captain. And Vangence, as a Magic Knight captain, he is, he's one of those guys that he's like, to me, he's kind of like mid. Not mid necessarily, but he basically is, because, like, if I'm ranking the captains, right, we have Vangence. He's a guy who had a body with Patri, shared the same body. We found that out. He wasn't really a traitor, but he, allowed Patri to do what he needed to or whatever. Then he left that kind of life behind. He was then needed to open the Tree of Cliffoth, right? And that's what season 5 is about. He knows how to fashion weapons out of his wood. He knows how to... Oh, no, he knows how to do that. But, he don't... Anyways, William Vangence understands he is a Magic Knight captain. He was needed for the Tree of Cliffoth to open. He can fashion weapons. He can even heal his comrades. That's where I was going with it. He can heal his comrades with his, he can heal his comrades with his magic. So as we look into these fights, we're going to fight in the middle of these towns. I was thinking about putting them in nature, but I think Ward Sequin has a more unfair advantage in, like, volume if we do that. We're just going to do that instead. So basically they're fighting in the, outskirts of these, towns of Magnolia, the Magnolia Forest, and then the, like, woods in, the woods in Black Clover, So we got, scenario 1, that's in Fairy Tale. Ward Sequin takes the L here in strength, physical strength. We got Vangence there, and Ward Sequin's a 130-year-old man. He can manage, muscle memory and shit, but he's still, that old age does catch up with you. Speed goes to William Vangence. William Vangence has, speed over, Ward Sequin. If so, slightly, but not really slightly, it's like a couple, points. We got durability for Vangence. Durability of Vangence over, Ward Sequin. However, endurance of Ward Sequin is higher than Vangence. Vangence is not known to be an endurance beast, right? But Ward Sequin, what did I say? He did that for his guys, right? When God Serena came through, right? He got up and he was like, we still gotta fight. Even though this guy has 8 types of dragon slaying magic, we still have to do. Intelligence goes to Vangence. Vangence is intelligence is higher than Ward Sequin. He had the ability to be like, I can give my energy out to other people too. I can create advantages in the trees, but these trees are more familiar with Ward Sequin. His magic would take over, and Ward Sequin has more volume too. However, he can fashion weapons, the shit that Ward Sequin doesn't think about doing. However, Ward Sequin has years of experience, using these plants not for that kind of thing, but more in defensive ways, for transportation, for creating walls and barriers. He can make them into like fists and shit like that too. You know, they're both unique in different areas. But guess what? Ward Sequin has that long years of experience, So that keeps him in the fight longer, is what I'm saying. You know? Two, his experience and his endurance. So the close skills go to Vangence. He's more of a close quarters kind of guy compared to Warren Sequin. Range skills to Sequin though. Then Recoup goes to Vangence. Vangence knows how to, recover, right? I told you he can recover people. He can even recover himself when he is, a kind of fool, right? Sequin ain't showing those kind of things. But it should be in his bag, but it's never shown. So hacks go to Vangence. He's of the arcane stage. Or in Sequin's the wizard saint. See, this is a close fight, y'all. This shit's not one of those things that, the winner, comes away, without being, beaten up. Vangence is at like, 25% health after this. Environment goes towards Sequin because it's in Fairy Tale. So knowing this, right? We got 7-4 with, Vangence winning. But it's high diff. High to extreme diff. Vangence wins though. Then we go over to Black Clover's world, and Vangence now has strength, speed, durability. Ward Sequin still has the endurance. Intelligence goes to Vangence. Experience goes to Sequin. With what? Close skills going to Vangence, right? Range skills, I told you go to Sequin, right? Because he knows how to transport shit with the trees using for transportation. But he also he's more of a defensive kind of guy, and he's there, but he uses the environment more. But this environment is what William's familiar with. He's familiar with these kind of trees and shit like that. Ward Sequin has all that experience in the fairy tale world, but not in his backyard. So it's a different place. And he uses that shit more effectively. That's why he's smarter than Sequin. Recoup goes to Vangence. And then hacks go to Vangence as well. Environment's Vangence, slightly though. Only because he's familiar with those forests. And Sequin has all that shit, right? But he already lost in his own world. High to extreme diff. So this is a high diff fight for Vangence. Winning. Extreme to high in the first scenario, and then high diff in the next scenario. So Vangence is over Ward Sequin. Had this been a younger Sequin, Sequin probably would have won. Sequin would have won high diff. But he's old now. He can still hang in this fight, and like some of these attributes are closer than you think, but Like when it comes to like durability, he's like a tree, so he's kind of like tough like that. And but once you start breaking him down, you gotta he has more punch. Mr. Vangence has more physical strength, speed. And it's close with the durability, right? Intelligence, Vangence. We have a fucking close battle, but Vangence is our winner today. Sorry, Sequin fans. I talk about Fairy Tale, and I will talk about Fairy Tale today too. But Vangence wins high to extreme diff in the first match, and extreme or high diff in the second. Extreme to high, or high to extreme in the first, and then high diff in the second. But be cool calling on the corner. And let me know if you want more of this, or you want to see another, people fight each other. I'm gonna do gauntlets too. I might see about that, later this week or next week. But be cool calling on the corner, man.